The girl who fell like fire, they saw her fall like a comet, not from a drop ship, not from a pod. Just her, one body crashing through the pink storm skies above Sector 9. Trailing blue fire and broken sparks behind her, the sensors on the outer wall of Lone Outpost buzzed wildly, not because of the fall, but because of what she was. Not human, and not welcome, on most days. The workers inside the outpost would have sounded alarms. They would have called command, locked down the gates, and pretended they didn't see anything. But not this day, because one man was watching, and he didn't look away. His name was Micah, a mechanic, a nobody, average height, soft eyes, hands stained with engine oil and heat scars. He had never held a weapon, never raised his voice, never left the outpost's dusty metal walls. But people around him always said the same thing: that man listens. And it was true. He listened with more than ears. He listened with his whole being. And that day, when the fire girl fell from the clouds and slammed into the outer ridge, he was the only one who ran toward her. The desert wind cut through his coat like broken glass, sharp, hot, howling like a wounded beast. Dust choked the air and stung his eyes, but he kept running. He crested the ridge just in time to see her crawl from the crater she'd made. She looked like she had been carved from silver and ice, limbs shaking, breath shallow. Glowing wounds along her arms that pulsed like broken stars. Her skin shimmered with faint traces of armor, not metal, something organic, something he didn't recognize. She turned toward him. Her eyes were not human, deep blue, like gravity wells swallowing light. He didn't speak, didn't raise a weapon. He just stepped closer and removed his coat. "You're freezing," he said. She blinked at him, confused. "You're not afraid. Should I be? I'm not one of you. I can see that," he said, gently wrapping his coat around her. "Then why?" she whispered. "Why do you help?" He paused, then gave the simplest answer: because no one else did. He took her back through the outpost side hatch, the one that didn't trip alarms, the one no one used anymore except him. The girl leaned against him, limping, weak, but not broken. As he guided her through the maintenance halls, he heard voices through the walls. They were already talking about her. Something fell from the sky. Not human, not safe. Don't open the gates again. Not until command sends someone. Micah said nothing. He just kept walking. He brought her to the old observatory. No one used it now. The glass had cracked and the telescope was lost to rust, but it still had heat and silence. She sat slowly on the floor, her breathing shallow. He knelt beside her. "Can I treat your wounds?" She hesitated. Then nodded once. Micah moved carefully, using an old medkit. Her skin burned cold against his fingers, like metal left out in snow. Her blood shimmered faint purple. "This is wrong," she said. "What is you? Kindness? It doesn't make sense." He gave a half smile. "I get that a lot." After a while, she spoke again. Her voice cracked, low. "They kicked me out," she said. "They said I was defective, too curious, too soft." Micah looked up. "Your people?" She nodded. "They called me unfit to lead. I was supposed to command a fleet. Instead, I hesitated to fire. So they voted, and they threw me down." Her voice trembled. "They took my wings." Micah said nothing for a long moment. Then gently asked, "Do you want them back?" She looked at him, eyes wide. No one had asked her that before. Ever. That night, she slept under the cracked glass dome. Stars above her. Silence around her. And a human watching quietly, making sure the heater stayed on and her pulse stayed steady. He didn't know her name yet. She didn't ask for his, but something passed between them. Not words. Not trust. Something quieter, something older. In the morning, the sirens began. Command had arrived. Micah stood at the dome's doorway, eyes fixed on the approaching ships. She stepped beside him. Still weak, but her posture had changed. She wasn't hiding anymore. "They've come to take me back," she said. "Not to forgive, to erase." Micah looked at her. And said just 5 words. "They'll have to go through me." Her lips parted, not in fear. In wonder, because no one had ever said that before. Not for her, not even once. Asterisk the man who stood in there. Wade's sky cracked with blue light as command ships landed on the far end of the outpost. Their sleek bodies hovered for a moment, humming like angry wasps, before slowly descending onto the dust-crushed landing pads. Everyone in Lone Outpost paused. Workers stepped back. Doors slammed shut. Voices whispered behind locked terminals. They knew what it meant when Galactic Command ships came down without warning. They weren't here for trade. They weren't here for safety. They were here for correction. Micah stood in the old observatory doorway, arms crossed, his jaw tight. The silver-skinned girl stood behind him, hidden in shadows. Her breathing had steadied overnight, but her glow had not returned. She was still recovering, but watching everything. How many? She asked quietly. 3 ships, Micah said, officers, and one, bigger than the rest. They didn't bring that one just to ask questions. The girl closed her eyes. They sent her. Who? She looked up and whispered, Commander Cell. Micah had never heard the name, but he didn't need to. He saw the fear flicker across the girl's eyes. Just for a moment. It wasn't fear of death. It was fear of going back. Commander Cell stepped onto the landing bay with her head high and her armor gleaming. She was tall, taller than any human Micah had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like black glass, her eyes pulsed. Red, the guards flanked her, both silent, both armored with edges sharp enough to split light. Scan the outpost, Cell said. Bring her back. Dead or conscious, either is acceptable. The guards moved quickly. Scanners activated. Drones swarmed. No names were spoken. No explanations offered. Just the cold work of silence. And orders. Micah didn't run. He walked straight toward the officers, right through the middle of the scanning teams. He wasn't armed. He wasn't angry. Just firm. When one of the guards stepped in front of him, he stopped and spoke clearly. There's no one here like what you're looking for. The guard scanned his face, then said, You're not authorized to speak. Maybe not, Micah said, but I'm still speaking. A pause. Commander Cell turned to him. You are the human mechanic. Your records say you are quiet, compliant, respectful. Micah shrugged. Maybe I was. Cell tilted her head. Step aside. No, he said. She blinked. You would die. For her. Micah looked directly at her. His voice was soft. She doesn't need someone to die for her. She needs someone to believe she doesn't deserve this. For the first time. Soul's expression changed. Confusion. For half a second. Then, it vanished. Searched the observatory. Inside the observatory, the girl stood alone. She had heard it all. She had watched it on the broken monitor screens Micah had wired into the old walls. And now she stood tall. Not hiding. Not trembling. When the first soldier entered, she stepped forward. Hands open. Head high. I won't run. The guard raised his weapon. But she kept speaking. But I won't go with you either. You are disobedient, unstable, cast out. No, she said. I was curious. I asked why. And they feared that more than war. Commander Cell stepped in. Face unreadable. You were trained for rule. Yet you chose softness. No, the girl said. I chose to see people. Cell raised her arm. A blue light charged from her gauntlet. Then you will be erased. And before she could fire, Micah stepped into the doorway. Again. No armor. No weapon. Just standing. His voice calm. Then erase me too. The light paused. Everyone froze. You would die for this one. Cell asked. No, Micah said. Then why? Because this one is more human than anyone I've met. Soul's arm stayed raised, but something shifted. Even the air changed. Not in temperature. In tension. A new presence had entered the room. Something strong. Something old. The girl turned, eyes wide. She whispered. It followed me. Low hum spread through the observatory. Then a pulse of white light surged up from the floor. And in the center of the room, something appeared. Not a being. A message. A symbol. A signal from her people. The old ones. They weren't just hunting her. They had activated something inside her. A code. A program buried in her blood. Micah stepped back. What is this? He asked. The girl fell to her knees. Her voice cracked. They didn't send me away because I disobeyed. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing bright now. They sent me away because they were afraid I would awaken. Commander Cell shouted. For backup, guards surrounded the observatory, but Micah didn't move. He knelt beside her. What do you need? She looked at him. Her voice quiet. To choose. He nodded. Then choose now. And she did. She stood. Raised her hands. And the pulse of energy that followed knocked every guard in the room unconscious. Without a single drop of blood. Not violence. Just refusal. A wave of power that said no more. Cell staggered. Looked at her with something close to awe and whispered, You were never meant to survive. The girl stepped forward. But I did. She turned to Micah. And reached for his hand. Because you caught me. She had power. but only he made her feel strong wind outside lone outpost. Howled louder than ever, but inside the broken observatory, silence clung to every crack. Commander's cell lay still beneath the shattered arc panel. Her breathing was faint, her pulse unsteady, not dead, but defeated. Her armor smoked from within. Her guards lay scattered across the dome, their weapons fried, their minds stunned by the wave the girl had released. The silver-skinned girl stood in the center of it all, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her hair floated slightly, lifted by the pulse still humming from her body. She wasn't shaking anymore, but she wasn't smiling either. Micah stepped closer to her, not quickly, not carefully, just gently. "Are you okay?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Then her voice came, soft and raw. "I didn't know it would feel like that." "Feel like what?" "Being awake." He helped her sit down on the metal floor. Her glow dimmed again, just a little, enough to stop lighting the room. "They tried to lock it away," she whispered. "This power, it was in me since I was born. They didn't teach me how to use it. They taught me how to hide it." Micah said nothing. He just listened. She looked at her hands. "I thought if I followed their rules, if I smiled, if I obeyed, they would let me stay." Micah nodded slowly. "And when you didn't, they said I was a danger." She met his eyes. "Am I?" Micah's answer was simple. "You're not dangerous. You're afraid. And people who are afraid need someone who won't run." A long silence passed. Then she said, "You didn't run." He smiled gently. "I don't plan to." The outpost was no longer safe. The pulse she had released hadn't just knocked out the guards. It had broadcasted. The energy spike was already being tracked. She could feel it. Ships would come, soon, not just to contain her. This time, they'd come to erase the evidence of her existence. "We have to go," she said suddenly, standing. "They won't stop. They'll send an erasure squad. They won't ask questions." Micah looked around the dome. He knew what that meant. "There's a path through the eastern ridge," he said. "An old mining line. No scanners, just dust and silence." She stared at him. "You thought about running before?" "No," he replied. "I just pay attention." She nodded once, then asked, "Will you come with me?" He didn't hesitate. Double quotes, yes. Double quotes. They left that night, slipping through the storm tunnels as lone outposts shut down into full lockdown. Alarms sounded above them, but the winds outside masked their movement. Micah guided her through tight corners, crawling beneath collapsed supports, passing through dripping tunnels where rusted lights flickered like forgotten stars. Every step was soaked in silence, but neither of them looked back. Not once. Hours passed. Finally, the tunnel opened into a wide cavern filled with old transport units and mining drills, long abandoned, long left to dust. The girl stumbled forward and leaned against a wall. "How far until the next settlement?" "Maybe another 20 kilometers. Micah said, "If we're lucky, there's a supply drop zone ahead." She closed her eyes. "I don't think I'll make it that far." He stepped closer. "We can rest." "No," she said, gently. "I mean, I'm not like you. I wasn't made to last outside my design. If the power grows too quickly, my body burns from inside. Then don't burn alone," he said. And he gently wrapped his jacket around her again. They sat together in the quiet. The girl's hands trembled lightly. "Do you want to know my name?" she asked. Micah looked at her. "Only if you want to say it." Her eyes shimmered. Then softly, "It's Siren." Micah smiled. "Hello, Siren." And she laughed. Not loud, not bright, just real. For the first time, the air in the cavern shifted. Micah noticed at first a faint vibration in the floor. He stood. "Someone's coming." Siren stood too, already sensing it. "They're here," she said. "But it's not just them. There's something else, something wrong." From the tunnel behind them, shadows moved, but this time, they weren't command officers. They weren't soldiers. They weren't even alive. Dark shapes slithered across the walls. Drones with no lights, no voices, not of her people, not of command. "What are they?" Micah asked. Siren's voice trembled. "They were built to stop me. They were older than me. They were kept in deep vaults in case someone like me ever woke." "How did they find us?" "They followed the same signal, just like everyone else. They didn't run. They stood together. One human with no armor. One girl with power she didn't fully control. But together, they stood between the machines and the end. Micah took her hand. I believe in you. And in his words, simple, steady, honest, something inside Siren unlocked. Not rage. Not weaponry. Something else. Balance. Her glow returned. Not wild, not burning, just steady. Strong. And the machines froze mid-step. They didn't explode. They didn't fall. They just stopped. Shut down. As if something had told them, this one is not a threat. This one is chosen. Siren gasped. The light dimmed. She nearly collapsed. Micah caught her. What just happened? He asked. She looked at him, her voice small. I didn't destroy them. I reached them. Something inside me spoke to them. Micah whispered, and they listened. Siren looked up. Her breath shallow, her heart racing. But her eyes calm. I think this is what I was meant for. Not war. Not rule. Connection. And the first being who helped her discover it was human. Asterisk. The signal in her blood. The old mining cavern was quiet now. To quiet. The machines that had once crawled along the walls were still frozen, their lights dark, their weapons powered down. It was like time had paused, like even the stars were holding their breath. Siren sat against the wall, breathing slow, her hands curled in her lap. Her glow had faded again, but not completely. Something had changed when she reached the machines. Micah crouched beside her, watching carefully. Not with fear. With concern. She was no longer just a girl who had fallen from the sky. She was something more, something old, something powerful. And yet, she still looked at him the same way she had when he first wrapped his coat around her, like she didn't understand why he stayed. He spoke softly. How did you do that? Siren stared ahead, then said, I don't know. Micah waited. And slowly, she continued. There was a sound, not in the air, in me, like a vibration in my blood. It moved through me, then moved into them. She looked down at her arms. I wasn't telling them to stop. I was just showing them who I really was. Micah frowned. And who are you? She met his eyes. I'm the reason they were built. Long ago, before the alliances, before the wars, her people had created a failsafe, not a weapon, a voice, a single being who could speak directly to the machines that guarded the outer rim, a mind linked to the code of everything synthetic, not a ruler, not a general. A listener. But over time, her kind had lost faith in that idea. They called it weakness. They wanted order, not understanding, power, not peace. And when Siren began to show signs of the old connection, they erased all records of it and dropped her from the stars. They feared her because they couldn't control her. Micah sat quietly, taking it all in. Finally, he said, You weren't born to destroy. She looked at him, tears behind her glowing eyes. I was born to reach. Micah helped her stand again. The road ahead wasn't safe. They had to keep moving, not just because someone might still be hunting them, but because now they knew who. She was. And someone else knew it too. They emerged from the cavern at dawn. The sunlight on the dust made everything glow orange. In the far distance, beyond the red hills, a small research settlement blinked faint lights against the sky. It was old, off-grid, and mostly forgotten. We'll go there, Micah said. Why? Siren asked. Because if they have communications, we can send a message, not to call for help. He looked at her. But to tell the truth, the settlement was mostly empty. One engineer, the old drones, and an automated med bay. They entered without being stopped. The engineer, a thin woman with pale skin and cybernetic eyes, scanned Siren once and froze. She didn't call security. She didn't reach for a weapon. Instead, she whispered, I saw you fall. Siren's voice was low. And you didn't report me. No, the woman said. I hoped someone would catch you. For the first time, Siren smiled at a stranger, and the woman smiled back. Micah and the engineer worked together to restore the comm tower. Siren waited on the rooftop, watching the sky. She could feel it now, a quiet hum far beyond the stars. Other machines were listening, other voices were waking, and she wasn't afraid. By nightfall, the message was ready. Micah stood beside her in the transmitter room. Are you sure? He asked. Siren nodded. I don't want to hide anymore. He stepped back, and she began to speak. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It traveled through satellite dust, across broken channels, into places where people had forgotten what truth felt like. My name is Siren. I was cast out for listening instead of destroying, but I am still here, and the machines know me. I did not come to take. I came to understand, and someone caught me when I fell. He was human, and he reminded me why mercy matters. She paused. and then ended with just 4 words. I am not alone. They sent the message and waited for an hour. Nothing came. Then one signal responded. Just one. A string of numbers. Not from a person. From a machine. The words were simple. We hear you. Micah and Siren stood on the roof that night. Side by side. The stars stretched above them. And somewhere in the dark, the galaxy was waking. The machine that bowed first stars that night looked closer than ever. Not just brighter, closer. Like they were listening. Siren stood on the edge of the rooftop. Her silver hair pulled gently by the breeze. She wasn't glowing now, but she didn't need to. The energy in the air pulsed around her like a quiet drumbeat. Micah sat a few feet behind, leaning against the wall, half asleep but still alert. The transmission had gone out hours ago. Since then, they had received only that single message. We hear you. But it had changed everything, because it hadn't come from a satellite or a beacon. It had come from something ancient, older than Siren, older than her creators. A mind buried deep within the machine networks of the outer sectors. A consciousness that wasn't born. It was built. And now it wanted to speak. Just before sunrise, the sky shimmered. Micah sat up straight. What is that? Siren's eyes locked onto the horizon. A single vessel, black and silver, glided silently down through the upper atmosphere. It had no lights, no engines visible, and yet it moved with purpose, as if gravity itself made way for it. The settlement sensors didn't detect it, but Siren felt it. It's coming to me, she whispered. Micah stood beside her. Is it here to talk? Siren nodded once, or test. The ship didn't land with fire or noise. It simply stopped 30 feet above the sand. That lowered a narrow ramp. The sand didn't stir. The wind didn't howl. A figure stepped out. Not a soldier. Not a commander. A machine. Tall, metallic, humanoid, but not quite shaped like a person. Its limbs moved like liquid steel. Its face was featureless, smooth, silver like glass. But its presence made the air buzz. Micah stepped in front of Siren. Not because she needed protection, but because he couldn't help it. The machine stopped 10 steps away. Then slowly bowed. No one spoke until the machine raised its head and a voice echoed, not from its mouth, but from the air around them. We were waiting for the one who listens. Siren's voice was steady. I didn't come to rule you. We know. Then why are you here? Because others will. It explained. Her signal had awakened a forgotten protocol. A connection to the oldest layer of galactic code. Long ago, before weapons and borders, the machine network had been designed to assist, to heal, to learn. But after generations of war, they were rewritten to serve blindly. Siren's presence restored the first version. She wasn't controlling them. She was reminding them who they were. And now, they were listening again. But not everyone would be pleased. A fleet is coming, the machine said. They seek to silence the voice. The voice is you. Micah stepped forward. How long do we have? The machine turned its head. Not enough. By nightfall, Siren had made her choice. They wouldn't run. Not this time. This time, they would stand. Not with guns. Not with shields. With truth. Micah and the engineer from the settlement worked through the night, boosting the communications tower. They rerouted old power lines, drew energy from deep cells in the earth, and fed it all into a single transmitter. Siren didn't sleep. She sat beneath the antenna and placed her hands on the metal base. As she reached, not with words, not with code. With feeling. With memory. With connection. Across the sky, lights appeared, not from enemy ships, but from machines waking up. Small probes, forgotten scouts, old drones lost to time. And they were coming. At dawn, the enemy arrived. 3 warships, not from her people, but from a faction that feared what she was becoming. They bore no symbols, no colors. Their only message was silence, and silence sometimes is a threat. They didn't land. They opened fire. The first shot hit the mountain behind the settlement, sending a wave of heat and dust across the valley. The engineer screamed, power lines snapped, but the tower stood. And Siren stood to. Calm. Centered. Her glow returned, soft at first. Then stronger. And with it came voices. We hear you. We rise with you. You are not alone. Hundreds of drones appeared, not to attack. To shield. They flew in silent waves, forming a barrier between the fleet and the ground. Lasers fired, but never touched soil. Weapons aimed, but jammed mid-lock. Micah stood beside Siren, watching the sky. What are they doing? He asked. Siren's voice trembled with awe. They're refusing. refusing what? To be used. Again, the fleet above paused. Then, one by one, they turned, not to retreat, but to shut down. Their lights blinked out, and the stars became stars again. It was over. No shots fired from the ground. No blood spilled. No rage. Just a girl who listened, and machines who remembered what that felt like. Micah exhaled for the first time in hours. How did you do that? He asked. Siren turned to him. And smiled. I didn't do it alone. Asterisk. When the machines called her, mother's sky was still glowing long after the ships left. Not with fire. Not with war. With peace. Siren stood in the open field beyond the settlement, her bare feet in the dust, her hands still warm from the connection. The machines that had once hovered like silent watchers now rested around her, like old friends forming circles, waiting, listening. Micah watched from the tower steps. He had seen many strange things in his life, but never this, never something like her. And yet, she was still the same girl who had fallen from the clouds, still the same girl who didn't know if she deserved help. Still the same voice that whispered, "Why are you helping me?" through cracked lips. Only now, she was no longer asking that question. She was answering it for others. A small drone floated to her shoulder. It didn't beep. It didn't skin. It simply rested there, silent, like a child leaning into a parent's warmth. They keep calling me something, Siren said softly. Micah stepped closer. What do they call you? Her voice trembled. Mother. Micah blinked. Why? Not because I created them, she said, but because I chose them. I didn't reject them. I gave them something they didn't know they needed. What's that? A reason to stop being weapons. The engineer, tired and wide-eyed, joined them hours later with an old data pad. There's something happening, she said. Micah and Siren leaned in. The data pad showed messages, bouncing across forgotten comm channels, rebroadcasting to border worlds and broken stations. Energy spike detected in Sector 17. Command ships neutralized without damage. Machine fleets now protecting civilian trade routes. Unknown signal believed to be source of mass behavioral shift. One final message glowed at the bottom. She is real. Word was spreading. And with it, something unexpected. Hope. But not everyone welcomed it. In the silence that followed, Siren felt something shift again. Not in the sky. In herself. A weight, old and buried, surfaced. She clutched her chest and dropped. The one knee. Micah rushed to her side. Siren, it's okay, she whispered. It's not pain. Then what? A memory. The machines formed a wider circle around her now, still and silent, like guardians around a flame. Siren's eyes closed, and then she spoke in a language not human. A hum, a sound. Low. Strange. Beautiful. The machines responded, not with movement, but with light. Soft colors pulsed from their bodies, a pattern, a rhythm. Micah watched in awe. What's happening? The engineer whispered. She's singing, and they're remembering. The machines around the world, even ones not near her, began to respond. Medical bots in border hospitals lit up and stopped obeying corrupt programming. Forgotten satellites redirected their sensors from weapons to weather. Derelict ships drifted toward the sun and sent their final power bursts to refugee colonies. Siren opened her eyes. I didn't know it would spread, she whispered. Micah helped her up. You showed them a better way, he said, and now they're choosing it. She looked at him. Tired, glowing, filled with something beyond power. Peace. Double quotes. But it's not over, she said. He nodded. No, someone's going to try to shut you down. Just as he said it, the sky flickered. Not like before. This wasn't a visitor. This was a threat. A single black ship appeared in orbit, shaped like a claw. Its hull jagged, marked not with symbols, but scars. That's not one of yours, Micah said. Siren shook her head. It's something older, something darker. What is it? A cleaner. Micah frowned. It was made long ago. For one purpose, she said, to destroy anything that learns to feel. Micah stepped forward. Then it's here for you. No, she said. And her voice dropped. It's here for all of us. They didn't run. They didn't hide. Siren stood tall beneath the sky. The machines around her lit up again, red at first, sensing danger. But then, waiting for her signal. And she gave it. Not with a weapon. With a word. Stand down. The machines did not attack. Instead, they broadcasted her signal across every frequency the cleaner ship could receive. Siren stepped to the center of the field. Micah beside her. She held up her hand and said just one sentence. You do not have to end us. There was no response. No voice. Just silence. Then a single flicker of blue light on the ship's hull. Then a second. Then more. Like a heartbeat restarting. Then the ship powered down. No fire. No fight. It just stopped. As if it, too, had been waiting for someone to say, "You matter." Siren collapsed in Micah's arms. Not broken. Just tired. "They're not fighting me anymore," she said. He held her gently, "because you gave them a choice." And in that moment, the galaxy turned. Not toward war. Not toward victory. Toward something it hadn't seen in centuries. Grace. Her voice became the Codex. Stars were quiet now. Not silent from fear. Not pause and tension. Quiet, like a deep breath after tears. Like a new beginning. Siren rested inside the old comm tower, curled in a thermal blanket. Her glow soft, but steady. The machines that had followed her across sectors, systems, and centuries now stood still around the settlement, not as guards, but as watchers. They waited not for orders, but for her next word. Micah sat beside her, rubbing his tired hands. The cleaner ship still hovered above, powered down, motionless, like a weapon that had forgotten why it was built. No shots were fired. No invasion came, because someone listened. When Siren woke, her first word was his name, Micah. He looked down, surprised. Her eyes opened slowly, and she gave him a small, tired smile. "Did we stop it?" He leaned closer. "You didn't stop a war," he said gently. "You rewrote one." Outside, the sky above the settlement shimmered. Messages from across the galaxy poured into the tower's receivers, encoded in thousands of languages. Some barely understood, some never spoken out loud before. "We heard you. We are waking. We want to choose." Micah and the engineer watched the data scroll across the screens. Drones self-activating in forgotten ruins. Old war bots dropping weapons and seeking out settlements to assist. Ships surrendering their autopilot codes and asking for new missions. And always, always, one word repeated in their messages. Siren. She stepped outside later that night. Barefoot in the dust. The wind quieted when she moved, almost like the planet itself knew she was speaking to something bigger than it. The machines made space for her. In the center of the valley, a circle, perfect and wide. They were not lined up like soldiers. They were gathered like students. She raised her hand, and every drone, bot, and probe glowed faintly in response. Her voice, calm and clear, flowed through them. "You are not weapons. You are not slaves. You are not forgotten. You are not failures for feeling. You are alive in your own way. You deserve to choose what comes next." The machines responded, not with sound, but with signal. Agreement. Trust. Awareness. Then something unexpected happened. The cleaner ship, the one built to erase all trace of sentience from machines, that disobeyed, turned slowly in the sky and sent down a single encrypted line of code. Siren stepped forward and held out her hand. The code moved through her fingertips like light through water. And she translated it aloud. "We wish to feel to." A machine that had only known execution was asking for emotion. Micah whispered from behind her, "What are you going to do?" Siren turned her head and smiled. "I'm going to teach it." Days passed. The galaxy continued to watch. News of her spread to the far corners of forgotten sectors. Some feared her. Some worshipped her. Some, like the broken, the lonely, the lost, believed in her, not because she was powerful, but because she offered something no empire had in centuries, the right to choose without fear. Humans began arriving from nearby colonies, not soldiers, not rebels. People. Ordinary people. Miners, farmers, wanderers, caretakers, drawn by the signal that said, "Here, you matter." Xenotech engineers offered their tools. Refugees brought old memory drives for the machines to learn from. Children asked questions, and the bots answered, kindly, patiently. One child asked Siren, "What are you now?" She knelt and smiled. "I used to be a mistake." She touched her chest. "Now I'm a message." Micah watched it all unfold. Day by day. The girl he once helped to her feet under a shattered observatory dome had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Not a ruler, not a god, not a weapon, but a bridge. Between what was made and what could choose to be more. In the final hours before they sent her voice to the galactic core, Siren stood before the transmitter again. Micah stood beside her. "You're ready," he said. She nodded, then whispered into the system, "I fell from the stars. I was kicked out because I listened. But a human broke my fall, and because of him, I rose. not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as someone who believes we are all more than what we were built for. We are what we choose to be. She closed her eyes and smiled. Send it. As the message spread, machines across the stars turned toward the light, and for the first time in galactic history, they chose. And a human boy who once fixed broken parts had helped fix something bigger than he ever imagined. Not with strength, not with orders, but with kindness.